Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers. Hey, welcome, Brewer fans, to another Brew Crew Review Podcast. With me today is, of course, Vince and Scott. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Kriegers.
Doing great. We're taping on a great day. It's National Beer Day, and it's National Brewers Win Day.
And it's a fine time to be a Brewer fan. As the Milwaukee Brewers are now 8-2 and have a couple-game lead in the NL Central already after only 10 games played. Quite the great week. As a quick recap, we went up to Cincinnati for our first road trip of the year and swept that in 3 games, including a magnificent performance on the Wednesday afternoon game by Freddie Peralta. And then the Brewers had a 3-game home series against the Chicago Cubs, and we took 2 of 3 games, and the Chicago Cubs are, I believe, now 2-7 and 5.5 games behind your Milwaukee Brewers. And that feels damn good. What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, yeah, that was a great way to start the year. And, we already were talking about this on last Sunday, just how great of a start it was against the Cardinals. So couldn't have asked for a much better start if you're a Brewers fan on the year so far.
Yeah, Craig, I think a couple episodes ago I had mentioned that, I'd taken your fact and said that 20 of our first 26 games are against Cubs, Cardinals, and Dodgers. And I said, with that in mind, and then the other 6 games are road games against the Angels and Reds. So I think with all that being said, and knowing that our bullpen is a little bit thin, I thought 13-13 would be totally acceptable to start the year. I'd be really happy with that. And here we are at 8-2. It's awesome.
I think Christian Yelich, who was obviously an NL MVP last year, I think some people thought he'd come back down to earth a tad bit, but that's not happening. He's been amazing so far, and this week he kept it going, and what a weapon to have at the top of our lineup with Kane and Yelich, and just our lineup top to bottom is going to be scary all year round, and even there's some signs of life from Orlando Arcia too, so yeah, I think the young pitchers that we have in our rotation, Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta, I think this team can go as far as those 3 guys will kind of take us, so to speak. And Josh Hader's been his unbelievable self as well.
Yeah, no, Greg, you hit that on the head. I think that the big question right now for the team is going to be the bullpen, and that's a bit of a surprise, considering I think that everybody thought it was going to be a huge strength, as recently as the midway point of spring training. But these injuries have definitely taken a toll. I know we've seen one move already, and I'm guessing we're going to talk maybe a little bit about it down the road here in the episode, but the Brewers did send down Taylor Williams this weekend and recalled Jake Petricka, who was the guy that we acquired in the offseason. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are about Jake and or the move with Taylor Williams here in the last day or so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Brewers are doing a great job, I guess, of making sure that they have fresh bullpen arms. And Taylor Williams, obviously, he threw a ton of pitches the night before he was sent back to AAA. And, he's been roughed up a bit in the appearances that he's had. He definitely has the stuff. I mean, he's got I think he was hitting 96, 97 with his fastball. Just unfortunately not able to locate, getting a little bit too much of the plate. So he's getting roughed up a little bit. And so he's going to go down and tinker with that. I'm sure it'll be a very temporary thing because we're going to continue to rotate those arms at the back end of that bullpen.
Yeah. And Craig, to your point about the rotation, it seems like, we've gotten kind of what we expected from Chacin. Peralta was amazing, one of his starts, and not very good his other start. Obviously, the season is young. It'll be really interesting to me to see what kind of adjustments Corbin Burns makes. I mean, part of it seems like a little bit of bad luck, but he's given up a lot of home runs in his first two starts. You know, I know we're all big Corbin Burns fans, and we saw all the numbers that he put up in the minor leagues over the years. But what do you guys think that Corbin's going to have to do to kind of bring that ERA down a bit and lock down that spot in the rotation going forward?
Yeah, it's a great point, Vince. You know, Corbin Burns has only thrown 10 innings so far. He's already given up 6 home runs, and he struck out 18 people in those 10 innings. So,
Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely getting a ton of strikeouts. But yeah, his when he gets hit, he was getting hit pretty hard. So he's definitely going to have to make a few adjustments there. He's just going to have to realize that, you know, it's maybe when he was in the bullpen, obviously he'd only have to face a few hitters. He'd never face the same hitter twice, and maybe those hitters are making adjustments.
Yeah, maybe he's not hitting his spots quite as much. You know, it seems like some of the pitches that were called for when he made mistakes, and I'm thinking back to the Jason Hayward at bat specifically this past weekend, seems like he just missed his spots. And, you know, I think that Corbin's a good enough pitcher where he can make adjustments, like you said, and come back and make sure that he is hitting his spots going forward. But, you know, it's like when he's on, he's really on. It's just it's kind of like the tale of two pitchers because, again, you're right, Scott. He's putting up these huge strikeout numbers. His strikeout numbers compare with Max Scherzer. I think that they're like 1 and 2 right now for innings pitched to strikeouts. But it was, yeah, he's obviously given up a lot of home runs, and I believe it's the first time, I read that earlier today, the first time since 1999 or 2000 that a Brewers pitcher has given up 3 home runs in 2 starts to open up the year, and the last time that was done was by Jason Beret. And it was either 99 or 2000. So yeah, it's kind of weird right now. It's tale of two pitchers.
I was going to say, I'm like, whoever it is, it's probably not someone that finished the year in the rotation.
No, I think it was Beret, and I know it was Beret, but I think it was 2000 when he ended up being traded to Cleveland for Richie Sexton, actually.
Well, I guess we should bring this up. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of fun things to talk about. I mean, an absolutely phenomenal start to this season. But today, after we're taping after Sunday's game, Josh Hader had to pitch 2 2/3 innings to get the save. And I think that every Brewer fan was like thinking to themselves, please leave him in there. That says a lot about Josh Hader, but it also says a lot about the depth of our bullpen right now. Is there anyone in this pen right now that you trust aside from Josh Hader?
Well, I'll take that. I guess Hader is definitely the guy I would trust the most. I don't know. It's kind of odd. Alex Wilson had a bad game a couple nights ago, but part of me wants to trust him a bit just because he is a guy with some experience. I do trust Claudio. I think that he is valuable. I don't know that he's going to be a guy that you want to throw multiple innings against both righties and lefties, though. So, you know, you've got these guys that I think that you can trust. They're kind of more for specific roles. Obviously, it'll be a lot better once Jeremy Jeffers comes back from his injury. And it sounds like that he is on track to do that, you know, in the coming weeks. So let's hope that he is, you know, activated and off the disabled list soon. I think I heard he's going to be activated off or after this current road trip that the Brewers are embarking on now. So he'll be back for the next home series. I think that was from our colleague Tom Wondercourt, or it might have been from somebody else who actually has the inside scoop on stuff. But in any event, I think that things will obviously settle down a little bit with Jeffers being a part of that team on the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need the good Jeffers back and back quick because as you see some of the other bullpens around the league, I mean, just this week the Reds and the Cubs bullpens are pretty bad, and it really feels like outside of Knebel, we're going to be without Jeffers, who we haven't had, and Hader, who's been absolutely dominant and used as a closer very effectively so far to start the season. Beyond those 3 guys, it's to answer your question, Scott, there's really no one to be trusted too much. I mean, I was hoping good things from Claudio, but I watched him pitch today, and it's like he really wasn't attacking the strike zone, so to speak, even with his great changeup or whatever. And he was walking some guys, and I'm like, I just don't like that from our bullpen guys to be putting guys on base, obviously. So Alex Wilson, I do think was a good pickup, and he has a rough patch a little bit, but he did actually have one save also this season. But and like you said, Taylor Williams went down. He'll work on some stuff and come back probably. But yeah, it's I think some of obviously Matt Albers was in a contract with us again this year. He's someone who I don't like using key situations either. So I hopefully it all comes together, because it feels like we were at this stage last year with the bullpen, and I know Knable was injured and ineffective at the beginning of last season, and obviously other guys stepped up. But just to kind of reiterate what a weapon Josh Hader is. I mean, today against the Cubs, where you have a 2.5 or 2 2/3 inning save. I don't think have you guys. I mean, obviously back in the day, if you pitched 3+ innings, you got a save. I think by MLB rules, even if you were in a blowout, if you pitched 2+ innings to end the game, I think you get credit for a save. But in a tight game, 2 2/3 inning save, I don't think I've seen that ever.
No, man, it was shocking. So I was out of town this weekend, and I was coming back and listening to the game on Sirius Radio, and I was shocked. I mean, we've seen Counsell use Hader, in a bit different role than many guys or many managers would use a bullpen arm in the past, especially last season. But I mean, to leave him in as long as he did today was not only unorthodox, but I actually loved it. The reason I loved it so much is because a guy like Hader should be pitching in these big games against your biggest rival. And right now that's the Cubs or maybe the Cardinals. So the fact that Counsell is trying to win games like this in April against a division rival, to me, speaks a lot about the mentality going into this year, and I loved it. So, yeah, I was a big fan of the move today. And to answer your question, no, I've never seen that. You hear stories about guys, from 30 years ago in baseball, like Raleigh Fingers getting a 2-inning save and that being more common, or guys like Bruce Sutter, but you really haven't seen much of that at all in the last 15 years, maybe even longer. So really, really interesting bullpen usage from Counsell. And I think that he knows, to get back to your question, Scott, that maybe these other guys are not quite fit or cut for that role. I mean, a lot of bullpen guys were used in the last few games against the Cubs, but even so, I just think that maybe it just speaks to the volume of trust that Hader has earned in that clubhouse, and I unfortunately maybe some of the other guys not earning that trust yet as well.
Yeah, but you got to figure it was a great birthday present for Josh Hader, who's celebrating his birthday today. So, I mean, you really couldn't take him out, right? He did throw 36 pitches, which, I mean, is an awful lot for a reliever. I mean, there's really no way to sugarcoat that. But, I mean, he has been used in this manner before. I think he got a 3-inning save last year against the Twins, I want to say. So, I mean, he's definitely not adverse to the multi-inning save. And, yeah, as you astutely pointed out, Raleigh Fingers is the other reliever that comes to mind when you think about all those multi-inning saves.
I think another thing to remember with Hader is that he spent most of his minor league career actually as a starting pitcher. So you know that he's done that before, where he's obviously pitched high leverage situation for many innings. But obviously it's been a while. But he obviously has the ability to go. But yeah, it probably makes him unavailable for the next day or so because of how many pitches he threw. But I mean, talking about other amazing feats, not only have I seen the 2 2/3 inning save in a tight game like that against a division rival, but already this year, another thing I haven't seen, and that's a 9-pitch save, 3 strikeouts, all on fastballs. Pretty incredible. So, what a weapon Josh Hader has, and I want to thank the Mets once. I want to thank the Mets once again for nixing that deal when we traded Carlos Gomez to them. And instead, we were able to get Josh Hader into our organization. Wow, what a trade!
Yeah, no kidding. And let's also point out the fact that yes, the season is very young, but our interns put it up on social media earlier today for his birthday. But he is currently, after today's game, he has pitched in 6 games, and his ERA is still 0.00 in 6 appearances.
Unbelievable. I mean, he was the relief pitcher of the year last year, and to me, he's one of the biggest relief weapons I've ever seen. is like just unbelievable. Not just on the Brewers. I mean, I think he's hands down, the best Brewer reliever that we've ever had. Period. But anyway, so enough about his accolades. I think the win against the Cubs was a big one. I think if we would have lost that, I mean, it's early. Obviously, everyone says it's early, but the fact that we're able to maintain already a 5.5 game cushion over the Cubs in the division is pretty nice. And I think that a loss today would kind of give them the momentum back a little bit. And their beginning of their season is just pretty horrific. They've only won 2 games. They won the first game of the season, and then they won yesterday, and that's it. I mean, but the other thing to keep in mind that was pretty amazing feat by the Brewers themselves is the fact that they gave up their pitchers this 3-game series against the Cubs at Miller Park, gave up 26 runs, and they somehow won the series. So that's pretty incredible in and of itself. Yeah. So that speaks to just how bad the Cubs pitching, especially their bullpen, is, and how good the Brewers lineup is, I think, too. So I think it's still going to be a long season and battle for NL Central, but I'm convinced already after 10 games the Brewers are a far superior team to anyone else in the NL Central, especially over the Cubs.
Well, one of the benefits too, Craig, like you pointed out, with so many games against the NL Central the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, is that you really can create a little bit of distance, and by the flip side of that, you're also talking about, with the Cubs starting off the year slow, they're creating a bit harder of a number of games to surmount later on in the year. So the Cubs are, they're still a good team. You certainly can't overlook them. Their offense is really good. Still some question marks, surrounding their pitching staff, but can't take them lightly. But I love the fact that they're getting buried in the Central because all these games that they're losing against division opponents, and how the Brewers are able to build up a cushion by beating on teams in the division like Chicago, like Cincinnati, like St. Louis. It's working to our advantage right now. And if we're coming out of the gate hot and able to keep building that division lead, it's pretty awesome for us, because right now the Brewers actually have the biggest division lead in baseball. And again, we're only 10 games into the year, so yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I will admit, after the Friday win, I was pretty excited. And I happened to check in on a Cubs blog, and one of the posters in the Cubs blog had made this comment, which gave me great pleasure, and that was, why does it feel like our season's over? We haven't even had our home opener yet.
That's awesome.
Because I think the Cubs have just got out of the gate terribly, and I think that they could, with a little bit, if they don't fix their bullpen, they're in big trouble, I think.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of money invested in guys like you, Darvish, and some of us wanted the Brewers to sign him the off season before the 2018 season, but with injuries and ineffectiveness, it's proven to be kind of a godsend that the Brewers didn't pony up the kind of money that the Cubs did for a guy like Darvish. And they've got a ton of rotation questions. Like I said, I do think that our offense is going to be good. Certainly can't be overlooked, but at the same time, yeah, could not have started much better for the Brewers this season here in 2019.
And it just came to me to think how much better we'd be if Corey Knebel didn't unfortunately come down with the injury that's going to cost him the entire season and possibly a little bit of next. But because he was such a dominant weapon last September. I think I looked at his stats in 16 innings pitched last September. He didn't give up any runs and had 33 strikeouts or something ridiculous like that. So I know that he had some struggles at the beginning of last year, but he was awesome down the stretch and even into the playoffs. And to be missing that arm, I think that there's been enough time. A couple of weeks have passed now since there are rumors out that the Brewers would be after Craig Kimbrell. He's still out there though, and he would still be a very nice addition. Looking at some of these other guys that were throwing out there, considering putting in key situations, it sure be nice to have Kimbrell out there, even with Jeffers coming back. But I guess that's just me, of course.
Yeah, no, and we talked about that a little bit last week on our podcast, Craig. I know that you were still recovering from your opening day party or whatever issue was going on, but I wonder if Craig Kimbrell's price now is coming down a little bit, or if it's going up as teams really see that they do have a need in the bullpen. What do you guys think about Kimbrell's asking price? Is he still going to be looking for some were talking as long as that he was going to hold out for a 5-year deal. I really think that's unrealistic, but is he still hoping for a 3-year deal at this point, or do you guys think he might settle for a 1-year, maybe higher average annual value type of contract at this point, 10 games into the season already?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I mean, I would think that if he had multi-year deals out there, I mean, he hasn't taken anything yet, of course. I wouldn't be opposed to the Brewers looking at something like that for the right price, but obviously he's priced himself out of the market because nobody's willing to take a flyer on him.
I mean, there's just no way he's getting more than 2 years right now because any team willing to do that would have done it already, for one. And if someone all of a sudden just says, all right, we were desperate, we're going to do it, even out of desperation, you're betting against yourself because if someone else offered him more than 2 years, he would have already taken it, almost regardless of salary. So he's getting 2 years max, most likely a 1-year cushion thing. I think it's just whatever strategy him and his agent have up their sleeves now that works out best financially. He most likely, with kind of a weakening free agent class now for next year, he might be better off just taking a pillow contract and hitting the free agent market again next year. Not, but I think at the very minimum, he could. I would say probably sign a 1-year deal with like an option or something like that. But beyond that, there's just no way he's getting beyond 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that he's still sitting out there. And I think most of us, or at least I, certainly expected that, yeah, you can go and miss the start of spring training and still be fine. And I expect him to sign maybe somewhere around the halfway point of spring training. But to have him still out there 10-plus games into the year, to me, is just mind-boggling. I mean, he's still one of the best relievers in baseball. This is a guy who's probably a future Hall of Famer. He would make any team's bullpen better. It's bizarre that he's still a free agent at this point.
Yeah, and I think obviously when you look at everything that Hader's done for this bullpen, our bullpen ERA is still at like 5.4 or something like that. And I guess that really goes to show like that we could definitely use a little bit of that bullpen help, but it's nothing compared to the Cubs. Their bullpen ERA right now is like 9.5. It's something ridiculous. I believe it's the absolute worst in the league. I mean, they've been atrocious.
I mean, right now, if you took Josh Hader out at the beginning of our season altogether, our bullpen would probably be just the same as the Cubs or Cardinals, which has been horrific the first 10 games of the year. I mean, even the Cardinals, they signed Andrew Miller for 2 years, $25 million, which is something apparently Kimbrel's not even going to get. And he's been terrible. Just like they're signing Greg Holland last year, kind of at the last minute. They signed Andrew Miller, and it's completely blowing up on their face so far. Obviously, he could right the ship, but I mean, thank goodness we're not going through those issues because that's what I mean. Just so valuable a player Josh Hader is. Him and Yelich, wow, unbelievable that we have those guys on our team. I think it's really we're gonna have a great season because of those guys and everyone else that Stearns has built around them. Very excited for this year.
Hey, did you guys hear it all from our anonymous source, Tom Carter, about how serious the Brewers' interest in Kimbrel is at this point?
Mr. Carter, Tom, he lets me call him, but he said that he thinks the Brewers are still one of 3 teams that quote unquote check in on Kimbrel, and it's like he basically called it whenever they're going to call it. He thinks Kimbrel will sign within the next 3 weeks, so he called me, but take that for what it's worth.
Worth quite a bit from our anonymous source. It's great. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, so I mean, looking ahead to the next upcoming week, the Brewers set out on their first lengthy road trip of 6 games, and they're going out to the West Coast. They play the Angels for 3 games, and then the Dodgers. What are your guys' predictions on this week? How do you think the Brewers will do in the 6 games we have to play before next Sunday?
It worked well when I picked it last Sunday, so I'm just going to say we win 2 or 3 from both teams. So we'll say a 4-2 week. against two pretty good teams, and I especially the Dodgers. They can be very much a thorn in our side, but I think the Brewers are going to come in with a little extra motivation against the Dodgers of Los Angeles after last year's NLCS.
Well, I think maybe Yasmani Grandal might have a little extra motivation as well, but I'm going to go with 3-3. I've just seen so many years. Last year was not one of them, thankfully, but so many years where the Brewers have that West Coast road trip and just get slaughtered. It's a tough trip to make, and I'm going to say 3-3, and I think even that might be optimistic.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say 3-3 too, Scott. I hope I'm wrong and that Vince is right, or I hope we go 6-0 actually. But the Angels pitching staff is not that great, so I think that we have an advantage there in those games. And outside of, obviously, they have the best player in the planet, Mike Trout, though. Beyond that, I think we can definitely win that series. The Dodgers, they're tough at home, and their offense has been pretty outstanding so far. Cody Bellinger basically has been going off so far, and they have a lot of other contributors. Even their new catcher, Austin Barnes, has been hitting fairly well. So their lineup is pretty stacked up and down, and Kershaw should be coming back this week. But, if he makes his first start against us for the season, that's fine, because I don't think he's going to go more than 5 innings or something like that, and he'll probably be a little rusty if indeed he does get a start by next weekend here in the Bigs. But, I think 3-3 is about right. But then we got a big homestand coming up, so we'll see what happens.
Yep, should be an
exciting
that's right. Baseball.
Great. Craig, have you been out to the stadium yet this year?
Yes, not to a game though. I went to buy tickets. I'm going to be going to
don't say
a couple of
Billy
games in late April and May, but definitely looking forward to. I know you've been out there a couple of times and saw some awesome games. Obviously, in the first homestand against the Cardinals, walk-off catch, walk-off hit. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. A work trip got delayed a bit, so I was able to get back. I was really excited since I don't get back to Miller Park, unfortunately, all too often. I had to squeeze in as many games as I possibly could in a weekend. So went to 3 of 4 against the Cardinals last week, and that was pretty exciting. I think I'm going to head up to New York to get the Brewers on the road against the Mets at the end of April. Is the current plan. So that might be a fun one as well. But yeah, no, great to see the crew in Milwaukee, and yeah, really excited for this season, guys. I think it's going to be a special one again.
And like Scott said, with the more games coming up this month against the Cardinals and Cubs, I think we need to keep the foot on throttle and not let them kind of climb back toward us, toward the top of the division. And if we could, maintain or add to that separation we've already created, it would be awesome going into, because our schedule does get easier starting about the middle of May, and you can't schedule. You can say they're easier, but these are all still Major League Baseball clubs. I mean, even the Marlins are said they're going to be terrible this year, and I think they're like 500 already, and so no games are easy, but I think this first stretch, the Brewers are, they're doing great already. And I think if they keep it up, we're going to be in the driver's seat for much of the season. I think that's a great place to be.
And one of the other stats, and we had the interns put it out on Twitter earlier tonight, Craig, is that the Brewers are now 3-0 in series play. And, I think the old mantra in baseball, if you can win every series or, win series, that leads to the playoffs. So the Brewers are again, very, very early in the year, but 3-0 in series play so far. So I'm very happy and pleased with that. It's tough to see a team, lose against your rival like we did, on Saturday night against the Cubs, for instance. But you take it all with a grain of salt, man. It's a long season, and to go 2-1, win the series, I think is huge. And again, 3-0 in series play is the best way you can possibly start the year, unless you're undefeated.
And just that mentality of, like, speaking of like today's game, you have your starter go 5 or 6 innings, and as long as the Brewers have a couple of run lead, knowing that you got Josh Hader looming in that bullpen, as a Brewer fan, just have this confidence that he's going to be pitching and we're going to be winning this game. And that's kind of how I felt today, even after Davies gave up the home run to make it 4-2. I just felt like our bullpen's got for today. And obviously having Hader pitch 2 2/3, I didn't see that coming, but huge win today. I think that the Cubs fans are going to be in for a long season. I do not think that they're making the playoffs this year. They don't strike me as that great of a team, especially if Yu Darvish cannot throw strikes. So.
Well, one more quick fun stat. When we were talking, since we were talking so much about bullpen arms and how quickly it can all change for you, the Cubs did send down Carl Edwards Jr. to hopefully get, hopefully for them to be able to fix whatever is broken with him. He gave up 15 runs all of last year and was a vital part of their bullpen. He's already given up 6 in an inning and 2/3 this year, and he is just he has an ERA of 32.4. Unbelievable. So, when one of your best bullpen arms is doing that, that's you're going to wind up being 2-7 to start the year.
Wow, crazy stat there, Scott. I didn't realize.
There's been a lot of teams that
was quite that high.
Yeah, there's been some teams that have stumbled out the gate here. I mean, basically, the Red Sox I think have only won 2 games, and then there's a surprise teams like the Mariners, who I think are like 9-2 or something like that, have like the best record in baseball by like a half game over us. But I don't think that's going to maintain. But, I mean, to me, the Brewers look like the best team in the NL. The Dodgers and the Phillies, I said, look pretty strong to me. But I think if I had to, those 3 teams I think are going to be hands-down playoff teams. That who else will sneak in will probably be, a team like the Cardinals or something like that. But beyond that, there's not too many teams in even the Braves. I think the Braves also have a playoff caliber team, but they're there's not that many teams in the NL. The Giants look pretty terrible as well. So the Padres, I think, are another team that could surprise the fact they're going with their youth movement and they're, going full throttle with some of their guys and their Manny Machado signing. They could be a surprise team as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's still so early. It's very hard to say. I don't think anybody's a lock yet, obviously, at this point in the year. But I do find that it's interesting, the teams that, like you pointed out, Craig, the Red Sox, everybody expected the Red Sox pretty much just to come in and if not clean house in the AL East, at least be a definite playoff contender. But, yeah, a lot of these teams have started slow. I know that New York took a couple games on the chin against the Orioles the first week of the year. It's baseball. Anything can happen. So, yeah, it's always interesting, and it's fun to see some of the teams that maybe don't get talked about quite as much, around at least national publications have some time. Tampa Bay Rays are currently leading the AL East right now.
Yeah, and they're doing it in a similar fashion with, relying on a bullpen usage basically to do it, and they've got a couple of really good starters. And beyond that, they're definitely they're doing a different philosophy than other teams have been doing it traditionally. So we'll see if they can keep that up. But I really feel like the Brewers are the best team in the NL really so far. And again, we shall see, but it's going to be a great season, I think. So anything else you guys want to talk about, or how are we doing on time there, Scott?
No, that is all the time we have, unfortunately. So definitely want to thank all those fun people that are listening to this podcast and giving us 5-star ratings and following us on Twitter at Brew Crew Review and then the number 1, and then emailing in their questions at brewcrewreviewpodcast@gmail.com, all that fun stuff. Thank you so much, guys. Really, really, really appreciate it. It's so great to talk like this and talk Brewers with you when the team is doing so awesome. Thank you. Go Brewers.
Go Brew Crew.